Hey friends, Frankie and Brad here in Casper's Kitchen where we cook music. Today Brad and I are going to chat a little bit about some unique albums, even some of which may be bootleg albums. But Brad, kick us off.
I think we want to start with the holy grail of record covers, and that would be the Beatles' Butcher cover. Now, these albums came out, it was the Yesterday and Today album. Actually, an interview with Paul McCartney said that John was actually taking a stab at Capitol because they cut up their albums in America. In England, all their albums had 14 songs, 7 aside, and Capitol Records said, no, you can only have 10 songs in America. So this Butcher cover looks more like an Alice Cooper cover, but according to Paul, they were poking fun at Capitol for chopping up their record covers as far as how many songs they could have. I saw an episode of Antique Roadshow where a lady brought this cover in, still wrapped, and the guy told her, take the wrap off the album, throw the record away, and frame this album cover. It's worth $20,000.
Wow. It's amazing.
What they ended up doing, because of all the complaints, they ended up putting this cover that you probably remember over top of that cover. Now, there was supposedly a chemical peel that you could take that cover off. I've seen two, and they were not pretty. So I don't know if you could actually peel that cover off and have a beautiful Butcher cover or not. I've never seen one. If anybody knows different, please let us know. But
if anybody runs across this record, let us know. We'll give you our address, and we would gladly take it as a gift. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you ever see an old copy of this record, look carefully. You may see that cover underneath, because they did paste a lot of covers to get rid of that Butcher cover. But it's the holy grail of album covers. Now, we also want to talk about bootleg albums, which a lot of your smaller record shops would have an area of bootleg albums, which were just plain white albums with a simple black and white insert telling you what it is. I actually bought one in 1973 in October, David Bowie live in Santa Monica, 72. I wore that album out. I mean, I had friends that would come over just to hear that album. And I found out later, many years later, that was the holy grail of bootleg albums. Now, the guitar player Mick Ronson, who passed away, I think in 94, 95, David Bowie reissued that album in 95 as a tribute to Mick Ronson. And then 14 years later, they repackaged and released it again on this label. Mick Ronson was, David Bowie said he was great at arranging his songs. David Bowie talked about how he would show Mick a song that he had written, and he would show him where he needed to change parts to make it work better.
Right.
And actually, the first John Cougar album,
Wow.
which is a really good album, and I always said that guitar player's good, but he's not on any other albums. And I found out many years later that was Mick Ronson playing guitar, but because he was under contract with another label, they could not put his name on that album.
That's still an issue today. Record companies have locked down their artists where you can't collaborate. An unknown band I'm going to throw out there, Cowboy Junkies. They're a folk band out of Canada, and they were with a label for many years, and the label company dropped them, and they created their own label. And the lead singer said that that was the best thing they ever done, because there were hundreds of people she had wanted to collaborate with that the record company wouldn't let her sing with, that now she's going back and working with. And it's kind of sad that the two companies couldn't split royalties on a single. You know, I mean, where we at?
Yeah, that's like Eric Clapton playing on the White Album.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could not put his name because Cream was under contract with another label.
Right. But I've heard a lot of artists, mention that. Bootleg albums, when the records were out, it was somewhat expensive to duplicate a record in small quantities,
Right.
because of the cost. But when cassette tapes come out and CDs followed, oh my God. I remember, and then there was 8 tracks. I even forgot about. I had an 8-track Led Zeppelin's best hits. Jesus Christ, what an album! But it was never an album. It was all bootleg, and like you said, bootleg albums were everywhere back in the day.
Yeah, you could hear your favorite group live. Sometimes it was really good. Sometimes it could be really bad. So you were kind of playing Russian roulette with a bootleg album. You had no idea what you were getting.
That's true. Something Pink Floyd, David Gilmour said of Pink Floyd that I well remember. Back in the day when cassette tapes were out, he was talking about that they used to go out when they did Dark Side of the Moon, and they would play that whole album on stage even a year before they recorded that album. And by the time they went into the studio, they had their chops down. He said, but we can't do that no more. He said, we go to a live show now, somebody's got a cassette tape underneath the chair recording that show. And if we put out anything that ain't been released, people are listening to it 6 months before we can get it out. And that was a big complaint he had. But bootlegs were out there if you knew where to find them. And the laws on enforcing that was non-existent.
Yeah.
Record stores had bootlegs. They never got rated. But things change.
Yep.
Anything you want to add, Brett?
Well, a lot of bootleg, I think they're still making bootleg albums today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And actually, I've seen a lot of these bootleg albums turn up on CDs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So keep your eyes open. You may see some live material of a favorite band you have not heard.
The thing of a CD, in tapes, if you copy a tape to a tape, you lose quality. And every time you copy, you lose quality, and it was called washout. A DVD, you don't lose no quality.
Right.
You can take an album DVD, individually copy songs off of it, and make your own album, and the quality is just as good as ever. And it's, if you're doing it in small quantities, it's hard to enforce. If you do it in large quantities, your chances of getting caught are real. But with the internet out today, it's just amazing what people get away with that, is not good for the music industry.
No.
Artists today, it's a struggle. You've got to do your YouTube, you've got to sell your merch, you've got to book your concerts yourself. You've got to carry in your amps yourself. That's why people aren't playing Marshall 4x4s no more. Instead of carrying in that big 4x4, they take a 1x12 because they got to do it themselves.
Yeah.
You know, but it's sad. What you've got to do to make a living in the music industry is tough.
It's real tough.
And not have a part-time job. Well, we're going to close with that, and we want to thank you again for listening to us. Please, please subscribe to our site. We need you. Give us a thumbs up, and as always, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.